If I told you we're back in Hueytown, Alabama again, would you believe me? Well, you better believe me, because today we got a great show for you on winners. I'm Neil Bonnett. In every sport, winning is what it's all about. In racing, there are different ways of winning and different rewards when you do. To get the checkered flag at the Indy 500, you gotta love the speed, 230 miles per hour. Daytona's great if you have a taste for close competition and bumper-to-bumper drafting. And the rough and tumble world outlaw sprint car racing demands even more of its heroes. They have to haul their cars further and race them harder than anyone else in the business, and without the rewards of great fame and fortune. Doug Wolfgang is a big winner in the hard-nosed game of sprint car racing. And sure, he's made a good living, but Wolfie knows he'll never bask in the same limelight as a Rick Mears or a Dale Earnhardt, and that suits him just fine. For Wolfgang, the winning is not for the money or the glory, it's his great love of sprint car racing, and he does it his own way.
When I first started racing, I knew that I was going to be an IndyCar driver or to be somebody, I was going to have to promote myself. And now that I know that I am who I am, I just kind of like to be let alone.
When Doug Wolfgang was a kid, his dad used to take him to the races in his hometown, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The kid liked what he saw.
The only thing I ever wanted to be was a race car driver, but you got to understand that in those days, in the late 50s and early 60s, to me, being a race driver was winning a feature at the local dirt track here in town. There wasn't magazines, there wasn't TV shows in those days. But I grew up listening to the names of Rathman and Jones and Foyt and all the rest of them in that era of time, the late 50s, early 60s, and all those guys became Indianapolis drivers by being good midget and sprint car drivers. That was their training ground. Their natural progression from a midget was to a sprint to an Indianapolis type car. I thought to myself, I'll learn to race modified here at home, go win a sprint car race, go get me an Indianapolis car and win it. It'd take me 3 years.
That plan looked pretty good to a teenage kid racing up a storm in South Dakota. But the road to Indianapolis was longer than he had planned and took a couple of unexpected turns.
It's been 20-some years later, and I never did go to Indianapolis. But by the time, what happened is by the time I found out that's what it was going to take, I buried my head in the ground, worked real hard at being the best sprint car driver I could be to get the notoriety that I could get to be that IndyCar driver. By that time, they went to rear-engine cars, road courses. It was a total different program, and they, you know, I just didn't think about it right.
He never made it to Indy, but Wolfgang sure made it big as a sprint car driver. The sport is ruled by 3 legendary drivers. Heading up the trio is the driver of the white number 11. Steve Kinser has won an astonishing 11 World of Outlaw championships. His nearest rival is Sammy Swindell, who managed to beat Kinser and claim a couple of championships in the 14-year history of the series. Wolfgang makes no bones about being the third of 3.
I'd say I stacked up just about like the record books say. I've won about the third amount in most World of Outlaw features.
Doug's probably one of the best sprint car drivers that's ever been, not just in this era, but in any era. He's smooth as he can be, exceptionally smooth on the big racetracks. He knows how to run his car nice and straight. He's a good, safe race driver, and he's got all the ability in the world, and he races good and clean, and that's what I've always respected of Doug. He's always been a good, clean race driver, and he always will be.
I'm just proud when I beat them. I'm just proud to be able to do it because I know they're the best.
That's typical Wolfgang, honesty and modesty.
Well, I don't know if it'd be modesty, but it's not underconfidence either. It's not that I'm running myself down. I just don't see no reason to talk about yourself. You are who you are, and I know what I can do, and there's no reason for me to tell everybody how great I am. I'd rather talk about somebody else.
And that brings us to the man Doug Wolfgang likes to talk about most, Dale Earnhardt. Wolfie's admiration of the Winston Cup champion borders on hero worship. And to paraphrase a country song, Wolfie liked Dale when Dale wasn't cool.
It's fashionable right now to be Dale Earnhardt, to be a Dale Earnhardt fan, because Dale Earnhardt has won more money and is probably as famous as anybody in the United States, but I liked him when he didn't win. I liked the way he raced, I liked his hard driving style, and I just think he's the greatest.
The fact is, Dale did more than just say hey to Wolf. It was with Dale's help that Doug got a crack at the high banks of Daytona.
Well, I tried it a couple times and wasn't really too good at it. I think I was roller skating when I should have been ice skating or something, but I never really gave it that much chance. I didn't really enjoy myself that much doing it, so I just came back to doing what I'm doing.
There's no doubt in my mind that if Wolf had liked it, he could have mastered stock car racing and maybe even become a big star and made a lot of money. But it also might have cost him a little of his identity.
I've seen the demands on Dale and Bill Elliott and different things like that. I didn't, that part of it I didn't enjoy. And I knew that there would be demands like that, and I knew the reason I was there, even to consider driving it, was for the money, and for me, that wasn't a good reason to do it. I think you should do it because for the love of stock car racing, for example, or the love of whatever you're doing. And I didn't love it like I did sprint cars, so I left and came home. And I'll tell you, to this day, if I could trade myself in and to be Dale Earnhardt, I wouldn't.
With that, you begin to see inside Doug Wolfgang. He puts on no airs, and he has no time for those who would like to change him or the sport he loves.
Sprint car racing is what it is. And it is going to be no more in my mind. It's dirt track racing at local fairgrounds, at your local little quarter-mile dirt track. The farmers and the fans come out. They get a hands-on. They can come down and touch the cars and touch the drivers and be around it. I don't think it's ever going to be a NASCAR type thing. The facilities that we drive on and race on are not conducive to being that big. In other words, we race at night. They're not well lit up. They're not beautiful, manicured 2.5-mile racetracks that seat 200,000 people with national TV coverage. On the other hand, it is what it is, and it's doing good at what it's doing good at. And I'd leave it alone.
Sprint car racing is what it is, and Doug Wolfgang is who he is. And he's one of the most independent, some say stubborn, racers in the business. When we come back, we'll find out more about how he earned that reputation. You don't want to miss this. 14 years ago, the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series got its name by rebelling against the United States Auto Club. The Outlaws insisted on going their own way. Doug Wolfgang is the outlaw of outlaws. For the most part, he won't chase anybody's championship. He runs where he wants, when he wants. The couple of times he did go after the crown, he was fired at season's end.
It's a pretty big-time sport now, and they hire a driver and pay a driver a fair wage to do a certain job. And I've been hired on 2 different occasions to win the World of Outlaw Championship, and I didn't. I ran second both times. And when those owners fired me, it was not altogether unfair. I mean, I think they've taken a kind of a bad rap about it. I think people say, well, what more do they want? Well, they wanted me to win. They wanted me to win it. They hired me to win the World of Outlaw Championship, and I didn't. In my mind, I probably should have been fired, and I was. And I got no problems with that now.
That hard-nosed approach is typical Wolfgang. In 1989, there were 67 World of Outlaw races. Wolf won 20 of them. Then he walked away from Bob Weichert's team, one of the best rides in the business. Marching to his own tune has probably cost Wolfgang a career achievement here and there, but his record is still very impressive. He's won more than 100 outlaw features and more than $1 million in sprint car prize money. At Knoxville, Iowa, the world capital of sprint car racing, he's won more features than any other driver in history. He's claimed the legendary Knoxville Nationals an incredible 6 times. The man knows his strengths.
I think some of my strengths would be hard-headedness. I don't like to give up too easy. I mean, I like to set a predetermined goal, whatever that might be, and then work for it and get it done. And if I'm going to a track that night that I really want to win at, I really try hard to win at. I mean, you know, it isn't so much a complete series of races or a championship with me. It just, I like to do good when I really want to do good. And when I really want to do good, I usually can do good. And another strength that I have is I think I have pretty good wind for my age. And you can get winded in a sprint car. It's pretty physical driving. You know, your arms are pumping back and forth. And I think that I have a pretty good physical conditioned body. I'm not by no means a marathon runner, or even I wouldn't even call myself an athlete. But in sprint car racing, I think that's one of the things that has given me somewhat of an advantage over the years, is I am strong to the end.
Over the years, Wolfgang has logged a lot of miles in sprint car races. He has made the sacrifices, and he's enjoyed the benefits. But time has changed even Doug Wolfgang.
I don't really enjoy to go. I want to go home now more often. I used to love to be gone 120, 25, 30 nights a year at the racetrack. I don't want to run that tough a schedule anymore, and I don't want to be gone that much anymore. I've got 3 daughters, and one of them's going to graduate from school, and it seems like she was born and graduated, and it was only 2 years ago. But now she's gone, you know, she's going to be gone, and I got me a baby now, and I don't know, it's just not that big a deal for me every single night to make every single race, so maybe that's a weakness. If it is, I got it.
He expressed that earlier before we started racing, that he was, you know, didn't really want to chase points and didn't want to do an extremely lot of traveling, liked to be home with his family, and that's the kind of way I am. I like to be home at least a couple days a week, you know.
Wanting motivation may be a problem for Wolfgang. Fading eyesight is not. He used to wear glasses. Now his eyesight is perfect. Thanks, would you believe, to a sprint car crash?
I turned a car over. In fact, it was here in town at Hartford Speedway, Hartford, South Dakota. And a guy, I was leading the race and turned over right in front of the whole field. And it wasn't even a bad crash. It was a wheel broke and it turned over, and they could have rolled it back over and I could have finished the race. Except for a guy hit me in the top of the roll cage and hit me in the back of the head with his front bumper wide open with his car. Knocked me silly for a little bit, but it didn't really hurt me none. Well, I kept getting headaches after that. Finally went to an eye doctor, and instead of needing glasses, which I was wearing, my eyesight was 20/20.
With the clear vision that resulted from the crash, Wolfgang has never lost sight of his goal, to be a winner in a sprint car. When we come back, how he's done. Doug Wolfgang, now try this one on for size. To be a good sprint car driver takes 3 things: skill, guts, and experience.
Skill, guts, and experience. I hadn't heard that, but that's about right, I guess. I guess in the beginning you got all kinds of guts because you're young and dumb, and you know you feel no fear, and you've never been hurt, so you don't know what pain feels like. So you've got all kinds of guts. And then as time goes on and your guts start to diminish, you gain a little skill to go with those guts, or what's left of your guts. And then by the time, I guess, that your guts are all gone, you've gained so much skill at doing what you like to do that you've got experience. And it kind of takes care of what you lost in your guts. So I think you might be right, but I don't know if you really have all 3 of them at one time.
Okay, Doug, beside those 3 essentials, is there anything else that has helped make you a great sprint car driver?
All I ever wanted to do was be a race car driver. And my first love is sprint car, dirt track sprint car racing. So I bring a lot of love and dedication to that right off. A good sprint car driver is somebody who has actually been born and raised around it. and seen it done and really likes it. Just, they're not doing it to make a living. They just like it. You know, and my father wasn't a racer, but he took me every night, and we used to discuss it on the way home, and we had so many discussions about it. We used to talk about the drivers and how they drove the racetrack and stuff, and what line they used to pass what driver, and even though it was innocent talk, it kind of stuck in my mind enough to when I got out on the racetrack, it became natural to me to have some of the moves that some people never had or never will have.
Doug Wolfgang has accumulated a lot of credentials and an impressive list of accomplishments in his long career. You may be surprised at the way he answers the question. Wolfie, what makes you the most proud?
Boy. You know, I guess when it comes down to it, the biggest thing that I'm proud of is I was born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and when I grew up in high school, I told myself I want to be a professional race car driver. Well, I never made Indianapolis and I never made Daytona, but I've been a professional race car driver all my adult life. I've made a living off of it all my adult life, and I think I've given a lot to the sport, but I've also been able to take some. I've been able to make a good living at it, and I'm proud of that.
While making a good living at his trade, Wolf has always said fame and fortune are not his big motivators.
The money is the cream on the top of the cake, because when I first raced, I would have raced for nothing, and I learned how to race for nothing, and I gained my experience for nothing. Now I'm getting paid for the years that I didn't get paid. And I don't feel bad about that, and I feel good about it. And I'm going to continue to do it until I don't like doing it no more.
And what about fame? And what about the limelight?
I get too much limelight for who I am anyway. Most people want to make me be somebody that I'm not. I'm just a sprint car driver. I'm not Dale Earnhardt. I'm not Rick Mears. I'm not in their league. You don't want to be. I like being who I am, and I'm proud of being who I am, but I also like my privacy. I like living out here in South Dakota. I like being left alone when I want to be left alone, and I'm not a bad guy. If I don't feel like being left alone, I'll stand right there and sign autographs for the longest time for the people, too.
Here's a guy who grew up to be a sprint car racer, who turned his back on Daytona, and is fiercely independent. He's happy with his lot in life, yet in his heart, Doug Wolfgang's boyhood dream still lives.
I left, high school to be a racer, and I have pursued that career since high school. Without looking back, everything has been built into being a race driver, sprint car driver. The only thing is that I've been all over the world, all over the country now, and I don't see any place that I really like to live other than in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And the chances of having a racing type background job or career after driving isn't very good here in town. So, and I'm not going to move, I don't think. I mean, in other words, maybe I could be a fabricator for a Indianapolis team, or maybe I could work on a stock car team or something like that, which is similar to what I have been around all my life, a racing type operation. But to do that, you're going to have to move to Carolina or Indianapolis, and I don't know if I want to do that yet. But I guess the biggest thing that I would change is, from the beginning, I wanted to be an Indianapolis driver. And I would love to take a car around Indianapolis. I mean, I realize that to really drive Indianapolis right, you should race the cars at 3 or 4 or 5 other tracks even before you even went to Indianapolis. And I don't really even want to be, I don't think I even want to be a complete series driver. I just would like to run one around Indianapolis. And then I'd probably be happy.
I suppose that you could argue that Doug Wolfgang's biggest misfortune was that he was born too late. 15 years earlier, a sprint car driver of his ability would almost certainly have had a shot at Indy. But on the other hand, if he had won the 500, I have a feeling all the fuss made over him would have driven him crazy in about a week, and he'd have went back to his beloved sprint cars. Doug Wolfgang is his own man. Doug Wolfgang is a winner. And I'm Neil Bonnett. See you next week.